But once he became Freddie Mercury, he never looked back.
You can't explain to people how huge Live Aid was. Everybody was on Live Aid. But they nearly never did the show.
You know, people, again, ask me to describe Freddie in one word, and which is totally impossible.
Bohemian Rhapsody. Is there anything that we don't know about that song?
He really was the kindest, most amazing man you would ever meet. A little over halfway through, he collapsed on stage. He came down the stairs and then he sat down in the kitchen. He said, look, I have AIDS. This is the last time we will talk about this because I have a life to live. That's hard. Nobody's asked me that question before.
Broadcast from Dopier Talk here. Coming up with a podcast, we have Peter Freestone, who was Freddie Mercury's PA from 1980 till he sadly died in 1991. Besides being Freddie's PA, they were also very close friends. Nobody knew Freddie better than Peter. We chatted for over 3 hours, a record for the podcast. We covered why Freddie kept his family away from his private life, his relationship with Brian, Roger and John, also the management. Fun stuff like Freddie and Michael Jackson recording vocals in the toilet. What the movie Bohemian Rhapsody got wrong about Freddie, that was really interesting. Shenanigans backstage and how Queen's iconic show at Live Aid nearly didn't happen, and so much more. We dug deep, very deep. Please remember to hit that like and subscribe button. We really appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
I mean, I've thought about a book. We'll talk about it off camera later, but yeah. I've got even about, I think of us to write when people wouldn't believe it. It's so mad.
Well, this is the thing for me. My life has been one that most people wouldn't even dream of. You know, if you look back to where I started, well, started Selfridges, okay. I was actually the youngest assistant manager they ever had when I was made assistant manager, 19. I then went to work at the Opera House, which... the people I was around all the time were likes of, you know, Margot Fonteyn, Rudolf Nureyev, Anthony Dowell, you know, those sort of people. And Domingo, Carreras, Krauss, Pavarotti, Caballé.
Fabulous.
Those were the people I was around, you know, every day.
Well, that must have been amazing in itself.
Oh, yeah. And the thing is, I love classical music, so it was heaven. I mean, I can remember the day I fell in love with opera was April the 22nd, 1975.
Wow.
Because it was the first night that I worked as a dresser for the men's opera chorus. And it was Il Trovatore, Verdi, with Carlo Cusuta, Irina Arkhipova, Cheryl Milnes, and Montserrat Caballé.
Amazing.
And you just couldn't, because, you know, backstage, the tannoy is going, you just can't get away from the music. And it was incredible just to listen to these voices. And so what we did as dressers, and this was just about all of us, you do the first show and you see when you're needed to help with this, this, and this, and the rest of the time you're on the side of the stage.
Right.
Just being part of this whole thing. So from there, I went to Freddie Mercury.
So when was the first time you met him?
The very first time I met him, okay, 1979 in October. It was, the Royal Ballet were doing a big charity show. They did one every year, so that you get the people coming in from America, you know, to do their bit. But they wanted someone different. They wanted someone the audience wouldn't expect. And one of the people who were organising, I can't remember if it was Derek Dean or Wayne Eagling, thought of Freddie. Because at that point he was wearing the ballet slippers and doing his moves where he thought he was an amazing ballet dancer. And so they got in touch with him, but it was actually quite easy to get in touch with him because one of the governors of the Royal Ballet was Sir Joseph Lockwood, who was chairman of EMI.
Right.
So they asked Sir Joe, would you talk to Freddie? And,
Sure.
and apparently Freddie just jumped at the chance he was going to be dancing with the Royal Ballet.
And was that the crazy little thing called Love, wasn't it?
That was Crazy and Bohemian Rhapsody at the London Coliseum.
Wow.
It was wonderful. The thing is, it was not anything like they had planned because they assumed that Freddie would be able to dance.
Right.
And so they'd got all this choreography set up where he was going to be, what he was going to... He had 2 left feet. On a stage, he could do what he wanted, but he could not follow choreography at all. So he just wandered around singing, and they lifted him up and put him here, there, and everywhere. But, I mean, it was wonderful. I mean, the audience loved it. They absolutely loved it. After the show, I went backstage because there were people there that I knew. And he was standing there. And I thought, no, I'll go. And I said, look, sorry, I just have to tell you that was amazing. Your voice, Queen music, and Royal Ballet dancers, what could be better? And I had one of the biggest surprises of my life at that point, because there's this rock star in T-shirt, jeans, trainers, and I said that to him, and he was, oh, but that's so kind of you to say. He was one of the most polite people that I had met in years. And it was just natural. It wasn't put on. It was nothing. Because he was the perfect English gentleman. You know, it was just the way he'd been brought up.
But you both went to boarding schools.
Yes.
I think maybe would that have been a bonding thing between you?
I'm convinced that was what made life easier, because so many people didn't understand why he wouldn't call his parents twice a week and why he wouldn't go round and see them and do family life. But you have to remember, he left home at 8 years old and went back at 17. And I think he saw them maybe once, his parents. He spent the rest of the holidays in India because it was a long way to Zanzibar.
Yeah, so that was boarding school in India. And you also went to boarding school.
And I went to a boarding school in India. And it's only when I wrote the book that I found out that my first 3 years at the boarding school in India coincided with his last 3 years. I mean, in totally different schools. He was up near Bombay. I was down in the south. But I understood why he wouldn't want to call his parents. I remember it was every Sunday, you used to have to, after the evening meal, you had to write a letter home. And I think it was actually part of the English course to learn how to write a letter, because they were all read and you were told to correct this and this. But that must have been the same for him. He would write a letter once a week.
I mean, I don't want to labour too much on this, but I think it's important to kind of get an understanding of Freddie, like especially early days, because I mean, maybe listeners outside of, say, the UK mightn't know so much about boarding schools back in the day, but they were pretty brutal places. I don't know what it was like in India, where like you had prefects and, you know, older kids disciplining younger kids. And I read an article recently about it where they were saying that, you know, a lot of kids, when they go like Freddie did at 8, and they cry themselves to sleep every night, and then they harden up and they just accept it. And then, but later on in life, they find it hard to express their emotions. There's a lot of talk about it, especially now in the UK. Was that fair to say?
Sort of, yes, because, as I say, I can talk from my own experience, except I remember I was introduced to the matron, and I was crying and holding on to my father, and she said, no, I'll show you where you're going to be sleeping. I go, so I went with her, and I said, bye. And he went off crying because I was happy. I'd found my bed.
Right.
You find a group that you can become part of because you need that group for protection.
They become your family in a way.
Yeah, but also the seniors. Perfect example, I went to a boarding school for 5 years. My brother was at the same boarding school for 5 years. And in that time at school, he must have said 12, 15 words to me in 5 years because he was a senior boy and I was just this little junior. I started at 6 and I finished there at 11. But I understood that your friends are the people that you rely on. Family is there, but they're always out of
Reach.
grabbing distance, yes.
Yeah.
It's always... So the friends become important. And this is what I saw with Freddie immediately, that he had a group of friends, and that's where he stayed. The family was kept. And that, for the whole time, family was kept totally away from this part of his life.
Sure.
His work life, his home life. He would go once every 6 weeks or something to go and have lunch with his mother. And every time he went, he would take Mary with him because she was there from the beginning, you know. Also, I think because of his sexuality, if he told his parents, they would have to condemn him.
Right.
Because of Zoroastrianism. So he would not put them in the position of having to accept it. They knew, of course they knew. They weren't stupid. But he didn't want to push it on them, to let them, you know, say, well, this is what you have to accept, this is me. So he always had Mary there to try and keep things, the appearance of normality for them. But he kept them totally away from Garden Lodge, from shows, from everything. They would go to one show when he toured Britain, they were allowed to one show. And they were kept totally away. Their own little room to go to, not with all the others. And,
So do you think it was a total sort of transformation in the sense of, you know, with artists, they've got their stage persona, then they've got their sort of personal persona? Because he really didn't like to be called Farouk, did he? Like, by anybody?
No.
So do you think he totally transferred into that other person and never went back to Farouk?
Yeah, really, basically. Because he became Freddie at school. It was his friends at school started calling him Freddie instead of Farouk. And that's who he stayed. I mean, you could see through, I think, till about 1972, 73, you still could see Freddie Bulsara. It was always Bulsara until he became Freddie Mercury. But once he became Freddie Mercury, he never looked back.
So you met him properly in Legends nightclub. Was that the first time you had a proper conversation with him?
No, it was actually in a car going to Brighton. I was picked up in a car, taken to what was the Meridiana restaurant in Chelsea. And Freddie was there and Peter Straker was there. Eating, and I was invited to eat. And then we went in the car down to do the show in Brighton. And that was really the first time we talked, was over that meal. Because what happened when we first met, and I said this, and he was just so polite. I mean, we just talked a minute or something. And he said, look, I've seen you. What work do you do here? And so I explained about dressing, getting the costumes ready, working in the wardrobe, the running wardrobe. put them on the dancers, take them off, get them ready for the next set. Okay. And off he went, and I went off. But then about a week, 10 days later, there was a phone call to my boss in the Royal Ballet Wardrobe, asking, from Queen management, asking if I would be available to do a 6-week tour with Queen, looking after their stage costumes. People say, oh, it must have been the easiest choice on earth. Look, working for Freddie Mercury, it was very difficult because at that point in the Royal Opera House, I was 24.
And listening to classical music rather than rock music, so rock wasn't really high on your agenda.
I mean, you had a job for life. Mm-hmm. Once you started working there, you never left. Right. You had a pension, your health was taken, everything. I had to give that up. If I went to do the 6 weeks, my job would be finished at the Opera House. I could not go back. I mean, there was a big, total separation, and I had to decide. And I thought, looking after 4 people has to be easier than 5 of us looking after 50. So I said, yes, I will do the job.
But it must have been also the adventure of it.
Yeah, but the thing is also, you have to remember, at that point, I knew 7 Seas of Rye, Killer Queen, and Bohemian Rhapsody. Other than that, I did not have a clue. I had no idea how many were in the band. I had no idea of their names or anything. And this is a little bit before the internet.
Sure.
So I had about 10 days to try and find names. It was just impossible. What am I supposed to do? You're asking people. So I went to the first rehearsal, and I was shown the wardrobe costumes. And they were disgusting because on the last tour, the person doing the costumes walked out before the last show. So all the costumes were just thrown in. They were wet. And this is a few months later. And the smell when it was open, and then
mouldy,
trying to do something with them. But Paul Prenter, he said, look, once the band arrive, I'll introduce you to them. And I was doing my bit, and I'm looking, waiting for some, rock stars to arrive. I mean, Freddie I saw arrive, but I'd met him before. And then after about 40 minutes, Paul comes over and says, okay, now that they're all here, I'll introduce you to them. And I thought, what rock stars? There had been one person who could have been a rock star because he had a wolfskin coat from shoulder to floor. I thought, that has to be a rock star.
The manager, was it?
The manager. And then I was introduced to these rock stars. It was...
But they probably liked that about you because you weren't you weren't a fanboy. You know what I mean?
This is the thing. To do that job, you cannot be a big fan. And also, because I had spent years around, Freddie used to say quite often how proud he was because he stole me from the real stars, because he considered the dancers, the opera singers, those were the real stars. And now I was with him. But having worked with them, stardom didn't mean so much. They were people, not stars. And that's how I worked with them. I mean, of course, you have to, each one is different, and you find the level you can go to. I mean, but we were friends, all of us, in the end. But to start with, you know how much you can say there, what you can say there. And it took a little bit of time, but actually looking after 4 people was so much more hard work.
But also, been in rock and roll, there's a lot of dynamics you've got to come to terms with, not only with the band, but with the management and, you know, his own PA,
And the
Paul
crew,
at the time, and the crew. Like with Paul especially, who was very close to Freddie, and Paul Prender. So did you and he get on well?
Yes, very, very well.
Because he's often portrayed as a villainous character in the history of
What I would say to everybody, you have to go and see the film Bohemian Rhapsody, but don't believe it. It's an amazing film.
But they need a villain in a film, don't they?
And the thing is, because Paul actually was about 3 people rolled up into one, because there were 2 other people who were not good for him. So Paul was that, because they could not have more characters, because it would just, the film would just go too far apart. So he was all the bad people in one. No, I mean, he was fine until, I think, about 1984. No, before that, 83. And then he started spending a lot more time with Freddie. He was the band's personal manager.
Right.
And Jim Beach was the business manager for the band, because they managed themselves. From 1977, they managed themselves. So they had a business manager and a personal manager. But Paul was spending time with Freddie and ignoring the others, basically. And so in the end, they said, "No, okay, fine, no, we don't need him anymore. You know, he's not here, he's not doing what we need." And Freddie said, "Okay, fine, look, I'll just take him. I'll pay him. He'll be mine, but he'll be around, but not for you."
Yeah, I saw in the film, obviously, they show the scenes where he sold out Freddie to the press. And I mean, I did a bit of research about that afterwards. And like, he was obviously suffering from AIDS as well, and he needed the money. So, I mean, he did sell Freddie out, but he was desperate for money at the time. Apparently so. Maybe you can set the record straight on that.
The problem there is Freddie saw him well when he actually finished.
Right.
When Freddie finally had to say, you know, enough, sorry, he gave him quite a bit of money to go to start his life off again. And that just disappeared. Where, how, who knows? He was in Ireland at that point. He stayed in London for a few months, but then moved back.
The band didn't like him, though, did they?
No, I mean,
the rest of the band.
He was all right with them. When I started, he was fine. He was there. He was with them, or everybody, and made sure everybody had what they needed. But it just slowly went downhill.
And especially musically, there's like, especially with Hot Space, the album, where it's you know.
But the thing is, he was not to blame for Hot Space, like people make it out, because Freddie is blamed for Hot Space, for the disco, because he's always out at the clubs and da, da, da. But it was John Deacon who came up with the first of these beat songs.
Right.
You know, but it's easy to blame Freddie and the nightclubs. And because Paul was working for Freddie, he must have been telling Freddie what to do. Freddie would never be told what to do.
Yeah, when I saw the stories, that's what I was thinking. Freddie Mercury's not going to be told.
No.
And ironically, though, when obviously researching that a bit more, in a Hot Space, the fans didn't like that record for the most part. But, you know, you had Under Pressure, which is a huge success and a great song, in my view, with Bowie, which was amazing. But also Michael Jackson's Thriller was massively influenced by Hot Space. And without Hot Space, there might have been no Thriller. Can you imagine one of the best-selling records of all time, you know?
It was Michael Jackson who gave them, in fact, their first #1 hit in America, because he told them to put out Another One Bites the Dust. They weren't going. It was not on the list of singles anywhere, not at all. And he was at a show in LA, because he always came to the shows in LA if he was around. And they were talking, and he says, "Oh, I like this, and I like this," and he says, "But well, you know, there's another one, Bites the Dust is amazing. You should Oh, no, we won't do." They did, and they got a #1 hit out of it because Michael Jackson told them to release it.
And didn't they write a couple of songs together, Michael and
Freddie, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, no, they wrote one song together.
Was it Victory? What's it called?
It was called Victory, but Victory then came out on the Jackson 5 album and isn't anything like the work that Freddie was doing. Because, again, there is just so many stories about that. Freddie and Michael spent 8 hours together, and that was it. One day in the studio, and there were no llamas. There was, I mean, what happened? We were taken on a tour. I mean, this is amazing, though. Los Angeles, it was a beautiful day, white shirt, white jeans, white trainers. But it had been raining a few days before, and we would Michael said, "Look, before we go in, I'll take you around the animals that I have." And we were walking around, and I could see Freddie's face just getting more and more annoyed. And I thought, "But what's happened? Nothing, I can't." And I looked down, and the shoes were brown, and the bottom of the white jeans were going brown because of the mud that we were going through. But that's where the llamas come in, because he had 2 llamas. And one of them spat at Freddie. So
You didn't see the funny side of that.
No. So we went inside. The plan was to do one Michael song, one Freddie song, and one song together. The Michael song was almost finished, was State of Shock, which Freddie put vocals on, and both of them were very happy with it.
Okay.
They then went on to a song from Freddie, and he was writing at that point, "There Must Be More to Life Than This." Mm-hmm. And, I mean, it wasn't finished or anything. And so what Freddie did, he gave Michael the words that he'd written so far, and Freddie was playing at the piano. And you know, if you're in a studio, Freddie would have a microphone, the piano would have a microphone, Michael would have a microphone. No, because there was only one tape op and us. So there was one microphone in the studio that was recording everything.
Right.
They started, and Michael just started singing. And the voice was, you know, Michael's voice when he's doing that sort of ballad type. And he came to the end of the words. And there is a tape somewhere where you hear Freddie just saying, "Ad lib, ad lib." And Michael does. He just carries on with words coming out of his head. And they did that song. And the thing is, it was released eventually, part of it on the Queen album, where they do duets and things, and they've actually been able to mix Michael's voice, even with the keyboard, everything going. And it actually sounds really good. The last song, Michael said, "Look, I've got an idea for this song, and you know, it should work okay." And this is where Freddie had to say, in the end, he said, "Look, I don't know if we're going to be able, I don't know if I'm going to be able to do this." Because at that point, there was, as I say, just tape op in the studio. When Queen recorded, Freddie would go, he's got the idea in his head, goes to Roger, "Right, give me a bass drum track, 5 minutes, this speed." And then Freddie would start creating around it. And of course, there was no drummer, there was nothing. So Freddie explained this to Michael, and Michael was, "Oh, okay. Come with me, come." he took us out of the studio, down a corridor, and at the end there was this wooden door. He opened it, and there was a toilet. But in this toilet, there was a microphone set up. And Freddie was just looking at him, and he says, look, the best vocals I do are done in this room because of the acoustic in here, the tiles and everything. It's incredible. So what we'll do, and then he started just banging the door. And Freddie just looked, he says, Phoebe, do it. So I had to bang this toilet door for 5 minutes. So somewhere in the Jackson archives, there's this track of me banging a toilet door for 5 minutes. The thing is, all of this about they hated each other, Michael wouldn't talk to Freddie because of drugs, it's rubbish. The reason that Freddie's version of State of Shock never came out was because he could never get there for mixing. Because his touring, recording, everything, the timing just wouldn't work. And it just worked. Mick Jagger was there, he recorded it and mixed it and did it. The thing that I found with Michael that I will always, always remember was the fact that he treated me absolutely no differently than he treated Freddie. Because for Michael, people were people. It didn't matter who or, you know, whatever. I mean, he and I played video games. Freddie was desperate for a cigarette. It was amazing. We were on a tour of the house. And Freddie said, I need a cigarette, Michael. What can I do? And Michael was sort of taken aback. But, OK, come on. We went down to the kitchen where his mother was. And he says, Freddie wants to smoke. What should he do? And she thought, she went to a cupboard, took out a jar of jam, took off the lid, gave it to Freddie, and says, you go in the garden. So Freddie went with his jam jar lid out into the garden. And Michael said, look, we can't stand here. Come with me. And we went to this video room. It was a huge room that was full of video games. He collected video games. And we played this old, it was like table tennis thing. You know, you put the bats up and down and the ball bounces.
I remember it, yeah.
And we were playing that. And then he stopped and I thought, what have I done? He says, look, why isn't the world more like this? You're playing with the black bat and I'm playing with the white bat. Why can't everybody just get on like this?
Wow. Well, that's a lovely moment to have.
Yeah, and it's, as I say, he treated me absolutely no differently. If there was food, he took Freddie and me. He said, look, come, it's here. You have what you want. He was amazing. Look, everybody is entitled to their own opinions, whatever. That I accept. Everybody makes their own judgments. But for me, he was this wonderful human being.
And Bowie, were you around for the Under Pressure sessions?
Oh, yeah. That was very, very strange. I mean, because most of us, well, all of us, crew-wise, kept out of the studio while he was there because it was just manic. They were there for hours and hours. But when it came to vocals, Freddie came up with the idea that rather than try and work out what to do, Freddie would go in and do vocals that he felt would work. Then Bowie can go in without hearing anything, and then Bowie can do what he feels would work. But of course, Freddie went in and David's outside the control room listening to what Freddie's doing. And Freddie comes out and he goes in and he matches up with Freddie perfectly. And Freddie couldn't believe, look, we're thinking alike. But he said, look, sorry, listen. They could not finish the vocals. David had to go to New York. And Freddie said, "Oh, okay. I'll come to New York. We'll do the vocals there."
So they finished it.
So Freddie and I flew to New York and just spent 12 hours doing the vocals there. And that's another of my little claims to fame,
Right.
is in Under Pressure, because, you know, I don't know, 2/3 of the way through the song, Freddie does that slide 2 octaves. In the original, he just held the note for that whole time. And he was listening. We played it back. He says, "This is so boring. It needs something." And at that point, there was a song in the clubs. One of these disco divas did this slide up. And so I said to Freddie, sort of like a dare, because that's the only way he would have done it. I says, "Well, I mean, you know, maybe it won't work, but, you know, how about you trying to do this slide?" Okay. And in he went, because it had to be his idea. So he went in, he actually recorded it twice, and then never repeated it. But that's my claim, because I suggested what to happen.
And what did Freddie listen to at home when you guys were at home? Was he mainly listening to classical music or pop music, or was there much
He
music
watched
played
the
at home?
telly.
He didn't listen to a lot of music at home.
No. Because for him, music was more work. Music was the work side of his life. Freddie was able to separate his private life from his work life. And he did it all the time. He never would record anything at home. Although, okay, there was a couple of things we recorded, but we had such complicated equipment. Remember these cassette things where you press record and play? Mm-hmm. That's the recording equipment we had. But he didn't do recording at home. He just didn't, that wasn't him. This home was for friends, home was for enjoyment.
Did he have instruments at home, generally?
No, he had his piano.
That's it.
Only once that I can remember, something actually happened. He went to the piano and he shouted for me to come bring pen and paper. And he just sat there, he played a chord, told me what the chord was, I have to write it down. Then the next chord, write it down, And we went through 12 chords. He said, okay, closed the piano, took the paper, put it into the shoulder bag he took everywhere. And then it went to the studio. The next time he went to the studio, and he would play these chords, because he just felt that they worked, and create something from that. He would not... Home was for home.
So he didn't really write at home?
No.
So he wrote in the studio most of the time?
Okay. Music was easy for him, fairly easy for him. The lyrics were murder. Because for him, the song itself did not have to make sense. But the phrases that he sang had to make sense. So trying to get the words to give the meaning to fit the scan in the music was so hard for him.
Well, I've got to ask you then, Bohemian Rhapsody, like, is there anything that we don't know about that song? Because they are pretty eccentric words. They're very strange, you know, what's the story behind that? Where did he come up with the imagery for that?
Who knows? Who knows? The only thing you have to think of his childhood, his youth in Zanzibar, and surrounded by that culture in India, although it was obviously an English-speaking boarding school, but he is just surrounded. And when he went on holidays to his aunt in Bombay, so he had that Oriental thing, the Beelzebub, all of that. The nearest Freddie came to saying it was basically 3 songs in one. He had 3 songs he wanted to write, but couldn't write all 3. So put them all together. As I say, the words, but you look at the words, and each phrase does make sense. There's absolutely no sense in the song. But, I mean, the title, Bohemian Rhapsody, where's the rhapsody in it?
But at the time, it was an extraordinary single to release. I mean, I remember it very well as a youth back in the day, and it was just like the beginning no one wanted to play because it was 6 minutes long. And I think it was Kenny Everett who first played it, is that true?
Kenny Everett on Capital Radio. Because they were good friends for a while. And he heard it, and he loved it, and he was given a copy, provided it was just for him. That was the proviso. He then took it to the radio station and played it 3 or 4 times a day.
Right.
And that's where everybody just loved, because it is so different to anything. What do you class? What music do Queen play? What do they create?
It was rock mixed with orchestral, mixed a lot of drama, very big, mainly huge crescendo-like tracks. They always built up to a big chorus.
Because people ask me, and all I can say is it's Queen.
Yeah, there was nobody like Queen.
Nobody else like it. Yeah, there was a nobody like it, and I don't think there will be.
No, I agree with you. There's nobody like Queen. I think the thing that I find extraordinary about them for me is that, we'll get onto it, but, it was 1985 and Live Aid. I was watching it on the television, but I've said it before, I'll say it again. That performance for me of Queen songs is one of the greatest performances of all time, probably the greatest 21 minutes of music ever. As we were talking before the podcast, I think it was the way that he could channel your inner joy. He could just bring that out of you, and their music could do that. It was just passion. There was so much absolute passion, and the way he delivered the songs was committed and passionate, and I think you couldn't resist it. If you gave yourself up to it, it was a wonderful thing.
Yeah. And the thing is, the reason why Freddie was like he was because of something that Bob Geldof had said, that when you go on that stage, you are playing to the world, not just to this stadium, not just Europe. The world is going to be listening to you.
Well, it was, I think Live Aid, for people that don't know it out there, was 1.5 billion people. I think there was 13 satellites, and legend has it...
All of them were in use. People were trying to do things, and there was no satellites available.
And there's only 3 for the Olympics, as the legend has it. Yeah. But you can't explain to people how huge Live Aid was. Everybody was on Live Aid. But they nearly never did the show, didn't they? I mean, it nearly never happened.
Yeah, because it was partly because they weren't even invited to do the song, the Band-Aid song.
Right.
They weren't even thought of. They weren't even asked. So they felt that, well, if we're not good enough to do that, why should we do
that? Was
this?
Do They Know It's Christmas? Is it?
Yeah.
Okay.
So why should we do Live Aid? It's the same people. It's Bob Geldof. It's, Bob Geldof Productions.
A pushy paddy.
Yeah. But so that was basically the thought. But then he came round and he just sat Freddie down and said, look, yes, okay, I'm here. It's my idea, but look, if you want, it's Harvey Goldsmith's show. It's, because Freddie got on well with Harvey. And you will be playing to the world. And so they did it. They decided that this was... Also, the thing is, at that point, this was in 1985. Again, do not believe the film. There was never a point that they were on the edge of breaking up. But by the end of... Again, in the film, Roger says, oh, but we haven't played together in years. How are we going to do this? The tour had finished 2 months earlier.
Sure.
But by the end of that tour, things were getting fractious. It was...
Little frosty.
Yeah, and they did not know if there was anything left inside them to be able to give. And so this was a sort of, well, come on, let's do it. Let's see what we can do. Let's see what we've got.
But it's a reset, wasn't it? It was an amazing reset.
They felt on that stage that they had still so much more to give.
And legend has it that the sound guy recalibrated the limiter so they were louder. Is that true?
I believe so.
Brilliant. I love that.
It was just...
It's funny though. I was saying to you, I watched it this morning. A lot of Live Aid, a lot of Queen videos, and obviously the Live Aid show. 21 minutes of perfection, but it was actually strangely very emotional for me to watch it. I think you can't not be moved by that performance. There's something nearly transcendental about it. It was so magical, and especially if you lived in the 80s as well, it's got a really special place for people, I think, because it was so extraordinary. They blew everybody away, and everybody who was anybody was on that bill.
But they didn't, that wasn't the plan. They were just going to go and perform. They expected everybody to perform to their best. Queen were perfectionists. If they went onto the stage, it had to be perfect, because one of Freddie's mottos, and it went as regarding shows, albums, singles, you're only as good as your last, because the last is what people will remember. So it has to be perfect. They rehearsed for 3 days for those 21 minutes. And I mean, rehearsed for hours and hours at the Shaw Theatre for 3 days. They went on, and it was like the power had been switched on. Because, I mean, I'm not saying anything bad to any artist, but generally for charity shows, it's a charity show. And you go on and you do your thing, because you're doing what you do. But for Queen, it was still, even if it was 21 minutes, it was a show. And that's what they put on. I mean, Elton, he was sitting backstage and he says, well, is there any point anybody else going on? Because, you know, with no intention to take it over, they did.
Yeah, I'd say if any kids out there wanting to know how to put on a show, how to be a rock star, just watch that 21 minutes. That's all you'll ever need to know. It was so extraordinary.
And the way it was set up, you know, with that revolve.
Yeah.
So that you had one set of drums, this set was being taken off, this set was being put on, round. So because it's always the drums that take the time.
Sure.
And so it was always, that's why, 20 minutes they had to take it off and put a new set on. Well, 40. So, you know, it was, I mean, the whole thing was actually put together incredibly well.
Yeah, it was poetry in motion, the whole thing.
Yeah.
Just getting back to the band itself. So within the dynamic within the band, so obviously Brian and Freddie were close, and they'd shared rooms early days in the band when they were touring. And also Anita, I think, met Freddie first. Maybe that's how Anita Dobson met Brian through Freddie.
In fact, Brian introduced Anita. I've found this out recently.
Okay.
He introduced Anita to Freddie, but Freddie, she just was there all the time. They got on so well.
So what was their dynamic like, Brian and Freddie generally?
No. Freddie, I think, work-wise, was much closer to Roger. Because, as I said, when Freddie wanted to create something, it was down to Roger to put the foundations there. Freddie also helped John. He was there for John. Because Brian was this consummate professional. He didn't need people to be there behind him to support him. He could do it all.
Right.
And the thing is, when there were, in the studio, for example, when there were arguments, and there were arguments, this is where Freddie found the value of a tantrum rather than throwing the... He would just listen and listen. And in the end, he would say, okay, enough. If this is going to carry on, I'm out. I'm gone. I'll see you another time. And all of a sudden, everything's back to talking. Oh, well, maybe we should do this.
So I've watched...
He was the glue.
Yeah, I watched a lot of videos of the band, and he and Rogers just seemed to have a lot of fun together.
Yes.
They were like always joking about, you see actually Freddie properly laughing in some scenes, like properly, you can see he's having a really good time. So it seemed like you always need someone in the band like that who kind of makes it fun.
Yeah.
Otherwise, musicians take themselves too seriously. But you need someone in the band who just breaks that sort of, when people start getting a little bit up their own arse.
The perfect thing, if you want to see fun, is the making of video of The Great Pretender.
Mm-hmm. When he shakes him by the neck, is it?
Yeah. But no. That's How Can I Go On?
So that's right.
Not How Can I Go On?
I'm Going Mad.
Days of Our Lives.
Yeah.
Slightly mad.
Slightly mad.
No, if you look at The Great Pretender, the making of,
Okay.
all three, because it's Straker, Freddie, and Roger Taylor, and they just laugh and laugh and laugh. People get the idea that Freddie was all lonely and sad and depressed, and the film didn't help with that either. But Freddie loved laughing. People ask me what's my favorite memory of Freddie, and it isn't just one. It's just watching him at home with a group of friends laughing. It was, and the thing is, when he started laughing, everybody else had to. You just had to. It just came. You laughed. It was infectious. But yeah, Great Pretender. You watch that. You should. The making of.
I will
you get it onto your phone when you go.
Sure. And just going back earlier days with Mary. So obviously Mary was a very important part of his life.
Yes.
And sort of helping him when he was obviously, discovering his sexuality, and obviously he's with, he's having a heterosexual relationship. What you know about that? Mary was with him through his whole life, so I'm sure you got to know Mary.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
How was your relationship with Mary?
No, we got on fine. We really did. I suppose because I was never ever competition for her, which she always saw his relationships with men were, obviously, it was a competition because they were in the position that she used to be in. But I was never in that position, so we got on fine. She was there for him when he was penniless. She was the one working. She was paying the rent. She was feeding them, while this broke musician was going around trying to become famous. And she really did take care of him. They loved each other. There are so many different forms, different levels of love. And they loved each other from the time they met through to the very end. It changed over time. I think what happened, basically, Freddie was together with Mary. They were living together. Freddie was then, I think in about 1973, he was introduced to John Reid, who
was Elton John's manager.
Yeah. Who showed Freddie that you could be gay.
Because he was gay, wasn't he?
Yes. Yeah. You didn't have to hide it anymore. You could be. And I think from that, he started thinking. And his first relationship with a man started at the end of 73. And they talked, Mary and Freddie talked, and she said, look, if this is what's going to make you happy, then this is fine. This is what it has to be. I'm here. I'll still be around. If you need some, I'm here for you. And she was. I mean, he bought her an apartment round the corner from him in Stafford Terrace. Mm-hmm. So he had his own place and she lived a minute's walk around the corner. So they were always together. She knew to the penny what was in his bank account while he didn't. He knew he had enough. That was it.
I was reading about a journalist who used to interview the boys in the band, and she said she used to bring wine around to them, like a couple of bottles of wine, because she said they had so little money. This is even after the second album, because they were managed by Trident, I think, and there was no money filtering through, and yet the A&R guys were driving around in Rolls Royces and buying them. But she said, I had to buy them, used to buy them, because they had nothing in their apartments. They were broke, and this was after the second album. So, there was nearly a point where they could have broken up out of the fact they had no money. Yeah. Is that true?
But Mary was there for Freddie. The thing is, each of them, Roger was, although no, that was a little bit after that as well, but Brian was already married, I think, to Chrissy at that point. Roger found Dominique, who worked as assistant to Virgin Airlines, Richard Branson. Yeah. And they were together. John got married to the girl he was going out with. And once John was married, then Freddie didn't have to look after him quite so much. He just felt responsible for him, and he always protected him. But when he was married, then that was fine. So they each had someone who was there for them. I mean, Roger and Freddie made little bits of money in this market, the second-hand clothes market.
Kensington Market.
In Kensington.
Yeah.
But, it was pocket money, if they made any money. So, without Mary, Freddie, I don't think, would have been able to do what he did.
And he never really leaned on his family, did he, Freddie, for money at any point?
No, the family, he kept 100% away from his life with his friends, with his music, with everything. That was a totally separate.
Because, there's the one sister who's often mentioned.
Yeah, Kashmira.
But isn't there's three other siblings, older ones, that are never mentioned? No?
No.
Is there not? I read somewhere.
No, as far as I'm aware, it's only Kashmira who's younger than him.
Okay.
Because people ask her to describe what was life like with Freddie in Zanzibar. And she says, how do I know? I was 1 year old.
Fair enough.
Because he went when he was 8 and she was 2 years old when he went to India. So she doesn't know about the life in Zanzibar that he had. But he kept in touch, as I say, with the family. He kept in touch with them. They were not neglected. They were not pushed aside. But they were a separate compartment in his life.
I'm curious, the fact that he didn't really listen to music at home. Yeah, he was a huge Elvis fan, Hendrix fan, and even some of the artists of the day, like Culture Club, Boy George, and even Tears for Fears, and obviously Elton John and John Lennon as well. Yeah. But sort of, where was he getting his kind of
radio influence from? And because there was always a radio on in the kitchen. He would hear the music. And of course, he knew of the people. He was part of the music business. So, and then he did get to meet some of them. But, it was never close. The nearest getting to close was, we were in San Remo doing the San Remo Festival, which he hated because it had to be playback. And so he was walking around with a microphone anywhere but near his mouth because he never wanted people to think that this perfect recording was him singing. So he always... But that was the time when I had to organise a nice little tea party for him and Boy George. It was fun. That was fun. But, you know, he was happy meeting people like that. But he would not go to a show. He wouldn't...
He didn't really go to shows, did he?
No, he had a very, very short attention span.
He fidgeted a lot.
He got bored very easily.
Always fidgeting.
Yeah. I mean, I was... again, towards the beginning, I would hear him playing on a cassette every now and then, not all the time on it, but he would be playing Domingo or Pavarotti singing arias. And I said to him, well, look, you know, you realise that these operas that they record, it's actually quite similar to what you do. You record an album, you then go on tour to promote the album, and then record the next. An opera, the recording company will get their stars together, they will record an opera, and then the opera houses around the world will try and get as many of those stars together to perform that opera in their opera houses. It's the same as a rock tour.
Sure.
And I said, but why don't you hear him live? He says, but I mean, how could I do, can we do that? And I said, of course, because I still had friends in the Royal Opera House.
Sure.
And I saw, this was about 3 weeks later, that Pavarotti was going to be singing in an opera at the Royal Opera House. So I talked to my friend in the box office and we got front of the grand tier.
Right.
But as we were moving into the seats, it suddenly dawned on me that Freddie was happy listening to an aria and then going to do something else, read a catalogue, you know, whatever. He's going to have to sit through 3 hours of this opera and he cannot get up in the middle and walk out. What have I done? Luckily, the second scene, it was Un ballo in maschera, Verdi. Pavarotti comes on, he sings his aria, first aria. And Freddie's going, actually, it's good. I like this because it's live, you're waiting to see who's going to hit the high notes.
Right.
And then scene 2 started, which is aria for the mezzo-soprano. But then, from the very back of the stage, and in this production it was totally black, all you heard was a voice. And I just looked at him, and his jaw had just fallen. It was Montserrat.
Wow.
And he heard the voice coming out from the black. And at the end, she comes on, they do a trio, and he says, she's going to come back, isn't she? We're going to hear more. She'll sing more. And he was happy to stay the full opera because he was just waiting for her to come on. And that was the first time he ever heard her live, was in 1981. And he then asked me, you must have recordings. You've got recordings of her at home. Do you have? And I had some albums, some vinyls. And I took one, and he took it into the studio. And he put it on and played it through studio monitors. Turned up full volume. And I said to him, why is it at this volume? I want to hear her singing quietly, loudly. But the thing is, it was so loud, you heard the pages being turned by the orchestra and the creaking of the chairs as they were playing. That's how loud he had it going on. Because, you know, she was famous for singing these high notes really, really quietly. And he wanted to hear how she was able to produce this.
Also, he was a massive Aretha Franklin fan as well, wasn't he?
Yeah. This is the difference between the two. With Montserrat, we went to a couple of more concerts of hers, one in New York and so on, but he would never go back to meet her. He didn't want to meet her. He just wanted to hear her. And so he was over the moon in 86, just before Christmas, when he was asked by her management, would he sing with her? So he would finally meet her. Aretha Franklin was, while vocally she couldn't be beaten in his world, she was the biggest disappointment to him. Because he had tickets to go to a concert because it was Aretha Franklin. He got in and he was sitting, but he only went in once the lights had gone down. But they didn't go all the way down, they just sort of dimmed. She turned up on stage 45 minutes late, nearly an hour. She sang for 25 minutes and then disappeared. And he just felt so let down. Why can't she give this voice to people? I mean, just pay in public, but why can't she just give the voice? But she did 20 minutes.
Oh, that's a shame.
And went.
On it, speaking of his voice, did he have any prep that he did before the live shows? Did he ever go through any kind of rituals?
Hot lemon and honey.
That was it?
That was it. Well, what he would do, the nearest he would come to a warm-up would be about half an hour before the show. Trip Califf, the front
Front of house guy.
The sound guy, he would come in. All right, go on, do it. And Freddie would just sing a little bit, seeing how he could push it and what. And Trip would say, okay, fine, thank you. He would go out, but Trip already knew which voices he was going to have to use. Because if Freddie was not going to hit a high note, Freddie would go down an octave.
Sure.
But then he could put Roger up. So Freddie's voice would still be heard, and the high note would be heard because Roger was singing it. But if Freddie was in good voice, he could just leave Freddie up. But Trip knew, just from listening to him for not even 5 minutes, what he was going to be able to do that night.
Because I know from what I've read as well and from your book, it's like Freddie was very much on top of the whole light show. Everything had to be just so. And they discussed this after every gig, how the sound was, how the lights were.
Discussed. I like that word. Discussed. Okay. Yeah. That discussion. After any show, the band would come back to the dressing room, and earlier on, when I was started, they would go in the dressing room. 2 people were allowed in, Paul Printer and myself, and the door was shut, and the screaming starts. Whether it's technical or what stupid chords were you playing in that song? And Freddie, you sang the same voice, the same chorus twice. You sang this verse 3 times, and they shouted. Mirrors would get broken, everything. But they would get it out of their system. Half an hour later, everything was calm. All I was there and Paul was doing was undoing the shoelaces, taking the shoes off, slowly getting the wet clothes off of them while they're shouting at each other.
Wow. I mean, and just following on from that, we spoke about this before the podcast, but do you think it's fair to say that Freddie sometimes created emotional chaos to kind of reset himself for his own artistic reasons, to be able to channel into that again, to kind of get the right sort of mood?
Yeah. Because, as I said, he keeps his work life separate from his private life, but he has to have this place where they join, where he leaves the private life to go into the work life. Generally, in his private life, he knows everybody knew what was expected, and everybody did it, and he was fine. He was a kitten. And he really was the kindest, most amazing man you would ever meet. But in the studio, he had to write these words or create this music that's going to be, anything that
Drama.
he did. Yeah. And so what could happen, and I've seen it happen, that he would start an argument, usually with his partner at the time, because in the end, he knew everything could go back to normal. But he would start an argument, and there would be a huge bust-up, and then he would walk out, get taken to the studio, and work. And afterwards, he would come back, oh, I'm sorry about that. But everybody knew. The amount of times he shouted at me, but I know it wasn't me he was shouting at, it was just the body
it was himself
that was standing in front. Yes. Because, people again ask me to describe Freddie in one word, and which is totally impossible. But for me, he was the kindest, most generous, loyal friend anybody could wish to meet or wish to have. And I was one of those incredibly lucky people who was one of these people.
Well, he was definitely, for all of us as the audience, like, as I said earlier on, that you just remarkable. There'll never be another, for sure. But just going back to his emotions and how he used them in the writing and in his performance. I mean, there's a saying, great art comes out of struggle. And I suppose when you're very, very successful, I think it often happens with artists that they get very successful, very rich, and they can't sort of seem to channel back into that. So they need to find methods of being able to deliver.
No, for him, it was the arguments. That's what got the juices flowing. And the thing is, sometimes even to go onto stage, if he was really tired, and he would have to start something. Because if you watch any of these shows that he did, you don't actually realize how much he gave in every single show. Because he had to make sure that the audience remembered every single step he took. His job basically was to go onto the stage and have every pair of eyes in the audience on him. And if you've got 10, 15,000 pairs of eyes looking at you, you have to give them something.
Sure.
And he gave, and he gave. There was a show in Hanover. Again, I can't remember which year now. He'd had his leg in a plaster cast because he'd damaged the ligaments in his knee. It was only off 3-4 weeks, maybe. If you see the video, Hard Life, you see the very, very end where he sits down. You see he puts his hand behind him to help himself sit because he couldn't take the weight on his knee. We were doing the show. Halfway through, little over halfway through, he collapsed on stage. And everything just stopped. There was a so Terry, who looked after him, a bodyguard, driver, everything, he and I went on, and Freddie put his arms around our necks, and we lifted him, carried him off. The tour manager was there, the promoter was there, everybody was backstage, expecting to hear that that's it, the show's done, no more. But Freddie said, don't be so stupid, bring me the set list, come on. look, there's a piano song, there's a piano song, there's a piano song, and I can sit on the piano for the end. Take me back out, sit me at the piano. We will do these songs so we can give them a finish to this show, and then I'll go to the hospital.
Wow.
That's what the audience meant to him.
And just changing the subject a little bit on a fun thing, I know that, I was reading your book and Freddie wasn't a big reader, but you said his favorite book was The Spartacus Guide. So you got to tell the people out there about The Spartacus Guide.
Back in the day, every year there was a guide. It was a guidebook, but it's this big and this thick, with every gay bar in the world in it, with the address, the opening hours, stars, everything. And that had to go on tour, because in every single city we went to, Freddie had to go out after. The adrenaline was still going through him. He could not go back to the hotel room and pretend to sleep. So we went out to the bars for 2 or 3 hours. But we had to know exactly where, so that we could tell the driver, we're going to this address, we go to this address. But the thing is, even that he did not look at so much. We recited to him what was in it. After the guide, I think his favorite reading was Architectural Digest, and then any and every auction catalogue that he could get hold of.
Right.
That was it, because they all had pictures in them. The thing that made me laugh so much at this auction business, Freddie Mercury's library. And I thought, what? And there were these books I'd never seen, but you'd have to read them. And, I saw the things that he would read, the catalogues, they had stacks of them. And if you open them, you can see the numbers in them of the lots that I had to go and buy and how much I paid for it. It's all in the books. And that would be it. He loved, his favorite TV program was Countdown, which
Great.
to explain to
Do-do-do-do-do-do-do.
people, and Carol Vorderman.
Remember it well.
When you think she's
She was
still
easy
around.
on the eye. Carol Vorderman. Yeah.
But all it is it's a half-hour TV program where there's 2 people and they have the choice of 7 letters, whether it's consonants and vowels, and you have to make up the longest word you can.
It's still on today.
It's still.
Yeah.
And one of them is numbers, which he couldn't really be bothered with. But he was intense on finding the words. Countdown was every day. Because one of his favourite games, board games, was Scrabble.
Who doesn't
Because he
love Scrabble?
had an incredible mind. He was one of the most intelligent people that I know. And I don't understand where it all came from, because it did not come from books. It can only have come originally from the school, because then it was just life that gave him everything else. He would watch news on TV, but it's not something he had to watch. He only watched EastEnders while Anita was in it.
Sure.
Because he already knew the storyline, because she told him. So it was easy for him to listen and watch. But I don't know where he got all of this information. And if you think, he had at one point the largest collection of antique Japanese woodblock prints in Britain.
Because he loved Japanese stuff, didn't he?
He loved everything Japanese except sushi and sashimi. He would eat the cooked food, but he would not eat raw fish.
Right.
But yeah, he had the largest collection. And the thing is, what it was, he would have so many of them up in the Japanese room. But there was, there were about 25% of them were under the stairs in the picture storage. And every 6 months, he would go around and decide which one he wanted to take down and put a new one up. Him and Japan it was the only place that I saw him go for a real holiday. And he spent all of his time shopping.
I read in your book about you at one time in Japan, you and Freddie and what's the guy's name? It's just left my mind. Gary Newman went to lunch together, and then he ordered. Anyway, I'll let you tell the story.
Yeah, it was this really exclusive place. Misa Watanabe, she was publishing in Japan. She was the publisher for anything and everything.
Sure.
And Freddie and her were great, great, great friends. And so she said, look, I'll take you to somewhere special. We'll go to this place. And Freddie, oh, look, this is Gary, okay. And we go there and we look at the menu and Freddie says, yes, this looks good. I'll have this. And Gary Newman just looked and you could just see the look on his face. And he ordered a McDonald's.
Oh, dear.
To be brought in.
Oh, God.
And Freddie that was the end. There was no more conversation. There was nothing. That was it. I suppose that also helped fuel Freddie's thoughts about any and every rock star. They must be like him.
So he generally didn't hang out with a lot of rock stars, as a rule?
No. More of his friends were actors because they could come to lunch and they worked in the evening. And he loved having lunches for 10 people, lunches for 12 people. Christmas lunch one year, we had 25 people.
But wasn't he famous for his parties?
Yeah, but not the parties that you think of. He loved entertaining his friends, and particularly he could show off Garden Lodge.
Right.
And he was just so proud of that. Sometimes, again, people ask, what...
It was a Japanese garden, wasn't it? I think, was it based on
There was a Japanese garden there. Yeah. There was he created the most amazing place. And if you think it's between Earl's Court Road, Cromwell Road, which are two of the busiest streets, and you heard nothing. It was amazing because of the buildings around. Now I've lost the track.
We're talking about parties, his parties.
Yeah, I mean...
Any particular one that comes to mind that was
Well, I mean,
wilder?
the really biggest one, there were 200 people.
Well,
It was for his birthday, and it was, I think, his 40th. And it was just people from all walks of life, from the Royal Ballet, from music, from acting, everybody. And everybody had to wear some stupid hat. But, many people, if you're going to have that many people wandering around your house, everything gets put away into cupboards and, just so it's not knocked down, not necessarily that someone's going to walk off with it, but nothing, everything stayed. And he would be taking people around saying, look, this wasn't here last time you were here. Look, and this is new, and this... He loved entertaining people. He was brilliant at that. He could read people, and he knew what would entertain them.
and what do you think, I mean, looking back at all the years you were with him, 12 years, when did you think he was happiest? What period?
That's hard. Nobody's asked me that question before.
I'd get one in.
I suppose in the end, but I mean, it's sort of sadness, but happiest was the Barcelona recording. Because he had achieved something he never thought he would in his life. He fell in love with that voice in 1981. He never dreamt there would be anything happening. There would be nothing around, you know. He could listen to her every now and then on a record. And the fact that she recorded his songs, it's one of the only times I've seen tears in his eyes, was because the thing is, the way it was recorded, the tracks were recorded, everything was done except her vocals. So they would send her cassettes of the music and the sheet music for her. She would come in for 2 days, record 3 songs, go out again, because she was booked non-stop. The very first track to be recorded was Barcelona. And I heard he came out of the control room. He'd been listening to it, playback, playback, playback. And he came out and there were tears in his eyes. And I said, what's wrong? What? He says, I have just had the greatest voice in the world singing my music. They had such huge respect for each other. The first meeting was absolutely crazy. What happened? It's sort of, everybody knew if Freddie was coming to lunch, he would be there at 10 past. It was always standard. So lunch was booked for 1 o'clock at the Ritz Hotel in Barcelona. We were in the suite. And from 12 o'clock, he's pacing up and down in the suite, chain smoking. 1:45, we go downstairs to the room where we're going to be having lunch. He's walking up and down, chain smoking again. I'm at the door looking out to see when she comes in, because it was a room off the reception in this hotel. 1:05, she's not coming, is she? She's not interested anymore. She doesn't want to do this anymore. She did. And Jim Beach was there. Just calm down. Mike Moran was there. Just let us calm down. And about 4 minutes later, it was amazing. There was all these people dotted around the reception, and I'm looking out this door, and the people just parted, and Montserrat walked through.
Ooh, fantastic.
She comes into
a proper diva.
Oh, really? And this is Barcelona, her home.
Fabulous.
You know? She comes into the room, and they just sort of look at each other, and she's taken, and they're introduced, and they shake hands. And she says in an interview, when we shook hands, I knew I could relax because his hand was colder than mine, which means he's more nervous than I was.
Wow.
And then once they had been introduced, they just talk and talk and talk and talk.
Amazing. So, but it, as brilliant as that time was from in those albums, he still never really seriously thought about being a solo artist. Queen was still his first love.
For all of them, in fact, they could all do whatever they wanted. Again, don't believe the film. Roger and Brian did solo albums long before Freddie did Mr. Bad Guy.
Sure.
The only problem was the amount of money that Freddie got compared to everybody else. But it's... they could do everything to get the things that weren't Queen out of their system, because they wrote music. They didn't just write one sort of music, but when the four of them were together, they created perfection.
Yeah, there's some of the parts.
Yes, The thing is, this is something that Freddie absolutely hated, was when press talked about Freddie Mercury and his band Queen. Because he would always say, I am 25% of Queen, no more, no less. Because, okay, he's the front man, he's seen more, but he's no more than any of the others. And if you actually listen to Mr. Bad Guy, you do hear bits of Queen coming in. You hear a bit of Brian's guitar. You hear a bit, because Freddie missed Queen. He was in the recording studio, and he did not have his friends around who would be able to give him what he needed.
Feedback.
He had to tell people what he wanted.
I think it's fair to say in a lot of bands, when people break up, big bands, I mean, they do. I mean, Freddie's a bit of an exception. They were good records, but I think, you know, there's so much money, ego, everything involved. Breaking up a band, the singer leaves, everybody tells them what they want to hear. And what you need is people telling you what you don't want to hear to, you know, to get the best out of the music. You should be serving the song, serving the music. And that's why a lot of solo artists who come out of bands make rubbish records. There are a few exceptions, but mostly the records are not that good. But he knew deep down he needed the guys for you know, to bring the best out of them.
100%. I mean, the only two people that come to mind, I mean, there's probably many more, and you will be able to name them and reel them all off. But Sting and Phil Collins are basically, in my mind, the only two people who left a band and became big stars in their own right. There, as I say, you probably know many more.
Well, maybe Robbie Williams and take that, but hey, do they really matter? Sorry, Robbie, but
no, but you know what? No, and people were expecting that from Freddie. But the music that he put out, and the thing is also, it was like pulling teeth creating that album, because his mind was not on the recording of the album. In the end, he had to put tracks down, but he spent more time out in the bars with Barbara than recording. He would go out with Barbara Valentin, who was this amazing woman, actress, German. I mean, she was the mistress of Munich. Everybody knew Barbara. And he would go out, we would be out with her till 3 o'clock in the morning, 4 o'clock in the morning. Okay, fine. We go home. He goes to bed. I pick him up to go to the studio. The studio time was always 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And that was with Queen as well, because what's the point of saying 10, because nobody would be there. And you cannot expect a singer to sing at 10 o'clock in the morning.
Absolutely.
So 2 o'clock was studio time. But I would get him to the studio, and Mac would just look at me. And, okay, so he would sit down, he would listen to something, and we were just waiting for the phone to ring. And it would be Barbara. I'm bored. I'm going out now. And immediately, okay, you hold on, I'm coming. And he would go to 4 o'clock in the afternoon. He'd be out with Barbara through till 4 o'clock in the morning again. And that's when he was supposed to be recording this album.
I mean, you were around for all of the different boyfriends he had. And from what I've read, there was a lot of pretty dodgy characters, best way to put it. And did you ever feel like you could see it coming? Oh, this guy's just not good for Freddie.
Yeah. And the thing is, you could tell him. He wouldn't shout at you or anything. He'd say, look, thank you for thinking about me. But in the end, it's up to me to decide. It will be me who says it's time to go.
And with Jim Hutton, did you think that was a good choice? Did you like Jim?
Yes. I mean, I knew Jim many years before Freddie knew Jim.
Right.
Because I was assistant manager at a restaurant in Selfridges, and Jim was working in the bespoke men's wigs department, and he would come and have coffee every morning, and we would chat and everything. And so I knew him back from
Okay.
those
Did he meet him
days.
through you, or was that just by coincidence?
No,
or-
he met him totally outside. I went to Stafford Terrace one day, and I rang the bell, and Jim answered the door, and I thought, what the are you doing here? Oh, well, we met up, and I'm here, and that was it. I mean, the thing is, he was right for Freddie at that time. And even more so, he proved it when Freddie got his diagnosis, because the first thing he said to Jim, because Jim was the first person he told, is that, look, I will 100% understand if, you know, you want to go, you want to leave. And Jim said, no, absolutely no way. I was here for the good times, I will be here now.
And what year was this?
1987.
And had you known before that, or was...
No, we had little ideas before that. Because the big tour they did in 86, it really exhausted him. It really tired him out, and more so than usual. And sort of we had little thoughts, and he himself had ideas.
Yeah, I saw Brian May being interviewed about this, and you know, the most successful tour they'd ever done, huge stadium tour, 86. And at the end of it, Freddie said, I don't think I can do this anymore. And they were, oh, you know. So they kind of knew then maybe something was
And
happening.
also, John Deacon needed a break, because if you watch video of that, you see him smashing his bass into his monitor and everything.
Okay.
He needed the break. At that point, he had a bar set up on the back of his monitor so that he could go back round, have a drink, and then go back out again and play. He just needed this break, and so it helped him when Freddie said, look, I think we just have a break for a little bit. He was just tired. He then recorded, in fact, he recorded The Great Pretender at that point. And just was doing things, enjoying his home, because he'd only moved in halfway through 1985. Then he'd been on tour, he'd been recording. He wanted to enjoy his house. And what happened before, I don't know, it was very early spring, maybe even the end of winter, he had a sort of blue mark on the back of his hand. And I mean, he thought it was a bruise, and so ignored it. But a few days, it had not gone. It was, in fact, bigger. He went to the doctor, and they did a biopsy.
Was it carcinoma?
Yeah, it was Kaposi's sarcoma. But the thing is, when the doctor was calling him to talk to him, he would not talk to the doctor. He was in the shower, he was out shopping, he was anywhere except being able to talk to the doctor, because I think he already knew in his head. He actually received the diagnosis just after Easter in 1987. And he told me in May. But he told each of us separately. There were three of us. Well, there was Jim, but that I count him separately, and Mary separately. But there was Terry, Joe, and myself. And he made sure each of us was alone when he told us. And again, he gave us the same choice, that if we felt that we couldn't work anymore, and all of us were there, we just stayed. You know, because he said, he was upstairs in the bedroom, I was in the kitchen. He'd made sure Terry was gone on an errand and Joe was out shopping. And he said, are you alone down there? I said, yes. Okay, I'm coming down. He came down the stairs, and then he sat down in the kitchen. He said, look, I've got something I have to tell you. Okay. You know I'm not well. And I said, yeah, I mean, we've seen it, you know, you're just not yourself. He says, you know what it is. And I said, well, no, I don't know, but I have an idea. I have AIDS. This is the last time we will talk about this because I have a life to live. And that was the end of that conversation. Well, again, he said, look, if you want to go, you go, I won't hold anything against you. And nobody did. Nobody did.
It was dreadfully sad. I think for, say, some of the younger viewers of the podcast, it's like, you can't really explain how big a deal it was in the 80s and how dreadfully gay people were treated, and especially if they, you know, were HIV positive. They were thrown out of their families, they were thrown out of their jobs, they were attacked in the street.
There was no treatment, really.
It was really horrible. It was really horrible how these people were treated.
But remember, this was the time when if someone with HIV ate with a knife and a fork and a plate, nobody else would touch it.
It was like a horrible stigma.
Yes.
And the pain of that must have been so dreadful for him.
Yeah. But the thing is, he then felt the positive side because that, in the end, he did more music in those last years, right? Composing, singing, performing, not performing, but composing and singing than he'd done in the years beforehand. Because he did
Innuendo.
Barcelona, The Miracle, Innuendo, plus tracks for the band to work on in those years as he was dying, those 4.5 years. What my thought is, this is my thought, who knows if it's right or not. When Freddie received his diagnosis, it actually put his mind at rest because he never wanted to be an old man. He never wanted to lose the energy and the power that he had as he was. So he knew from Easter 1987 that he would never become old. And he actually concentrated more on the work. He created more, and he created some amazing stuff in those last years. In the end, he was the one who decided. He knew the disease was going to kill him, but he decided when it was going to kill him. Because he was recording in Switzerland with Brian, doing the song Mother Love, and Brian's writing the words and Freddie's singing them, and Freddie's saying, come on, more words, give me the words, I'll sing. And he did everything except the last verse, and he just says, I can't do this now. I'll be back, I'll do another next time. And he never actually went back into the studio. He used to go to Switzerland just to get away from the pressure of
the tabloid
England.
press.
Yeah, and because it was horrendous.
Well, they behaved disgracefully.
Yes.
Really disgracefully.
They did everything they possibly could to drag him down. Then a week after he died, it was all praise, and then they started dragging him down again. But he was in Switzerland. The end of October in 1991. Joe was there, Terry was there, Jim was there, I was at home. One day outside, there were all these people standing by a car. During the day, there was maybe 10, 15 people, and at night, there were 4 or 5 people. So obviously, something had happened in the press, and they were just standing there. So I told him about this. I rang and said, look, when you come back, they are going to be there. So we arranged how we would come in through the mews. They wouldn't even know he was there, come in, go through, because they didn't know if he was in the house or not anyway. This was on the 10th of November. He decided he stopped taking any drugs that were keeping him alive. He would only have painkillers. It still took 2 weeks for his body to finally give up. Because he knew when he came back from Switzerland that he would never leave Garden Lodge again. That was it, that was the end. So he made that decision that no more drugs for life, just kill the pain.
And you all kind of closed ranks around him, didn't you? The band, everybody.
Yes.
Which was a beautiful thing, I thought, the way he had you guys behind him, who, like, in the end, you were all there for him. That's when his family was really there. You closed ranks, and the band, yourself. And
Elton was absolutely amazing in those last 6 months. He was there every week. He would come. And Elton, just to make it quiet, he would drive himself in his Mini and park in the mews. We knew he was coming. We'd let him in, come through to Freddie. Except in the last week of Freddie's life, Elton had to go that day to Paris to record. He was going to be in Paris recording for 3 weeks. So, and he knew that it was the last time he was going to see Freddie. So he arrived chauffeur-driven in his Bentley right to the front door. He gets out and they're all shouting, why are you here? Where's Freddie? How's Freddie? Why are you here? And he says, I've just come to see my friend. And just came in. And left all his numbers, because he, in those days, did have a car phone. And, you know, this is before the days of
mobile
everything
phones.
that we cannot live without anymore. And, you know, he said, look, day or night, if something happens, call. You know, because he really cared. And what Freddie did for him, which Elton talks about so often, in, I don't know, a couple of months before he died, he still was buying things in auctions. And he saw this painting. And it was, I can't remember who it was by, but it was someone that Elton collected. So he says, buy it. This is Elton's Christmas present. And we wrapped it up and it was in a towel. And before Freddie died, he said, look, you make sure that on Christmas Day, Elton receives this. And Elton did receive it. And he could not believe that Freddie, while he was dying, was thinking about him.
Incredible.
But this was Freddie. He thought very much more for other people. And this goes back also to the parties. He would throw his house open to everybody because, you know, this is me. On doing shows for the audience, whether it was 700 for Tiffany's in Purley or 350,000 in Rock in Rio. He was there for everybody.
You must miss him terribly.
Yeah.
I mean, we all do.
I mean,
you know?
The thing is, I still, and I have to apologize, I still sometimes talk about him in the present tense. It just, I don't know, because he's around. I mean, the autobiography that you haven't seen, the cover is, someone did a drawing. It's of me sitting in a chair like this.
Is this Now and Then, or is it?
Right time, right place.
Right time, right place, yeah.
And behind, there's Freddie with his hands on my shoulders, taking care of me, because I spent 12 years with him, and now, 34 years later, I'm talking to you about this man. who is with me every day. He will be with me right the way through to my end. It's, I don't know, it's just so hard. I just feel him, and I can hear him laughing at half the stuff I do. You know, no, he's there. He's just there.
I think when people we love pass, it's like the pain of it eases, but the loss never does.
No. This is why, you know, I don't ever tell people, oh, time will make things better. No, it doesn't.
Just get used to it.
Yes.
But it's always there in the back of your mind. And even for me as a listener, when I was researching for the podcast, it was like, honestly, hand on my heart, but listening to the performances, it was really quite emotional, even thinking about it, because it was a huge loss to English music. I know maybe, you know, he was getting older, but I still think he had a huge more to do, you know.
He was 45.
You know, exactly. So I think he could have done, we all know he would have done amazing things, but it was just, he became part of our consciousness.
Yes.
And he was one of the greats of all time. It was a terrible, terrible loss. And you know, especially watching Live Aid, I know there was so many. There was the 1986 tour, which is filmed, which is wonderful as well. But still, for me, I say to anybody who's like starting out in this business, just watch those 21 minutes at Live Aid. If you want to know how to do it, if you know how to be a rock star to perform, watch that. Everything you need to know is in that performance.
Yeah. And if you want to watch a full show, I would fully recommend the Budapest show, because for me it's one of the best recorded live shows that they ever did. And it was in that tour, so...
that was the one for you.
Hungarian Rhapsody. Yeah.
And then obviously, lastly, there was the Freddie Mercury tribute show, which was huge. I mean, they lined up for that one, rightly so. And there was some amazing performances. What was the highlight of that for you?
For me, Lisa Stansfield.
Lovely.
I thought she was amazing. We chatted a little bit because we were behind. There was this big screen at the back of the stage, you know, so that you didn't see the backstage. And we were there looking through it and talking about what's going on, what's happening. And also, I suppose, for me, to have met and spent a couple of hours with Elizabeth Taylor.
Hey, come on, you're dropping names now, Peter. Elizabeth Taylor. And I saw at the time Liza Minnelli was there as well.
Oh, yes. Oh, yeah. I mean...
royalty. Showbiz royalty.
Well, the thing is, I was asked, would I take the singers to the stage? Because that's what I had done when I was with Freddie. When Freddie was alive, I would go to the stage with him, make sure. So I mean, I wasn't talking. I was there to make sure they got to the stage until Elizabeth Taylor arrived. And then I was sort of, okay, you look after her. And it was wonderful because she wanted to see what it was going to look like. So she was in a wheelchair at that point. And that was it, Larry Fortensky she was married to at the time, that young. And he was pushing and I was with her. And we went out into the stadium on one of the sort of things around. And we went in and we were looking just to see the stage. And people just didn't notice her. It was wonderful. You know, just some poor old lady in a wheelchair.
It's Elizabeth Taylor.
We went back, but then it was her time. She was to go on. And the thing is, you can imagine, backstage, it was crowded. There was people walking here, there, everywhere. And we had to get right from the back through to the stage. So I held one hand, and I was going in front of her, moving people out of the way. And she was coming in behind me. And there is in a documentary that I'd never ever seen before, I didn't know it existed, you actually do see me. I pull aside the screen at the back, and there's a couple of steps down, and I help her down the steps and onto the stage. Amazing. And there's me.
I have to say my favourite was...
Elizabeth Taylor, there's me.
My favourite was George Michael. I know it's kind of a lot of people's favourite, but he was incredible. Need Somebody to Love. It was just... I mean, he did it justice. I think Freddie would have been very happy with that.
I think
you know, he killed it. You know, it was a fantastic performance.
No, there were some really, really good ones, and there were some that I wouldn't talk about too much.
But I saw in one of the documentaries as well where Brian was talking about the tribute show, and he said that he was walking off, and then Joe Elliott kind of stopped him and said, "Brian, turn around and look at the crowd," because it was a huge reaction. He said, "You got it. This will never happen again." You know, and I think that's how the amazingness of it and the love that people had and the respect for Freddie. I mean, it's, as I said, for maybe a younger audience, you can't really explain what a huge and loved character he was.
Yeah. The thing is also, from my side, what shows how amazing that man was, that for that show, I think 2 performers did it in the original key. Everybody else brought it down.
Really? Yeah. George Michael didn't, though. I'm pretty sure it's the same key.
He was the same, and I think Lisa was the same. Everybody else had to have it down.
They just didn't have the notes.
No, they just could not give that.
So that was kind of, was that closure for you and the guys in the band, do you feel, in any way?
Yes, because you can cut this out, it's okay. I knew Freddie wasn't alive anymore, because if he was, none of those people would have been on stage doing it. He would have had them off.
Well, Freddie, if you're up there listening, we still love you. Your music is still amazing, and it always will be. And you were fabulous. I mean, one of the greats of all time.
He, musically, performance-wise, videos, so many of the ideas for the videos came from his head. The original idea would come from someone, but he would develop it. And the person behind it, he was absolutely incredible. And as I say, I was incredibly lucky. My time with him was from, I was 24 to 36.
I would say
so
he was also lucky meeting you, because you looked after him.
Yeah, well, that was the easy part. As long as you did your best at anything, he was happy. If something went wrong, provided nobody got hurt as a result of it, whether it was emotionally, whatever, then fine, you did what you could. The one thing he could not stand with people was people who did things without any thought whatsoever, just thinking of themselves and not of anything and everything around them. He could not stand that.
Yeah, you mentioned about, I was saying about one of the videos, I loved the waistcoat with the cats on it.
Yes.
And obviously that's one last thing, fun thing to talk about, because I'm a huge cat lover. Ted, my cat, just give it, shout out to my cat Ted. And and he used to ring up to talk to his cats, and you used to bring the cats to the phone. That's actually true.
The thing is, it was lucky. There were 6 cats, so there was always a cat around. And I mean, Freddie loved the cats. As you said, this waistcoat had all of the cats who were alive at that point.
Brilliant.
On them, on the waistcoat. For him, it was one of the best presents he'd ever received. But he would be away, whether it was Switzerland or on tour. I want to talk to the cat. And so you just pick up the nearest one and you hold it, and you have the telephone and you squeeze it a little bit and it makes a noise, and he's happy because the cats talk to him.
I totally understand that as a cat lover, but anyway.
But the cats ruled the house. They were allowed in every single room at the beginning. Every room they could go in. But then the Japanese got closed to them because they were starting scratching the silk cushion covers.
Also, there was the carp, wasn't there, as well, on the ponds, maybe?
Oh, yeah, but every cat actually went in once, but they never went in again. They'd always try and catch, and they'd fall in, and that was it. They would not go back in. There was a dining room there. It was, everybody described it as the perfect Indian restaurant because it was bright yellow gloss walls, and then one wall was windows. But, you know, these...
Shutters, yeah.
Yeah. And there was these full-length green shot silk, racing green shot silk curtains that could close the whole thing. So it was like a wall. They were open almost all the time. But then what Freddie decided one time, no, I think what we want to do, I want some more candles in here. We'll shut the curtains and it will make it really nice. And we shut the curtains, and there were golden arches along the bottom of the curtains where the cats had peed, and the dye had been stripped out. So, okay, the curtains will be open for this thing, and the cats were never allowed in the dining room again. The hardest thing, if everybody was leaving the house, we had to start leaving 15 minutes before the time because we had to make sure every cat was outside. Because every room had sensors and the doors had to be shut because of the contacts.
Right.
So every cat had to be out. And it took that long to go around the rooms finding them. And what you would do, you know these box of crumble things, you just shake that a bit and they all come. Choop, 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 choop.
The dreamies,
yeah. And that's how we got them.
Well, Peter, thank you so much for doing this. It's been amazing. As a huge Queen fan, it's just been wonderful having you telling us all these stories and putting the record straight on a lot of things, which is always nice to hear. There's been a lot of rumour and about what was this and what was that, but you know
well,
the real
thing
story.
is, Freddie doesn't need protecting anymore. It's not the 1980s. Freddie now is as Freddie was. And for me, it's just important that the truth is known because he doesn't need any exaggeration. He doesn't need anything like that.
Or validation. He was just amazing.
That was him. So for me, it's just important that the truth is known.
Well, thank you so much, Peter.
No,
you're a star.
thank you.
Thank you.
It's been a pleasure. It really has.
Pressure.
Under pressure.
I think we're done. Thank you. That was brilliant. I just so much enjoyed that. Trying to keep the tears back nearly because when I start talking about Live Aid, it's just it makes me quite. Even though it's such a joyous thing, it makes me feel quite emotional.
Because it will never ever be repeated.
Yeah, I think that's it. It was seeing my youth, you know, there, and as Oscar Wilde said, youth is wasted on the young.
And as I said, I mean, I was incredibly lucky to have been around this whole thing between the age of 24 and 36.
Yeah.
I was able to enjoy it. I was able to take it all in.
So you were there for Live Aid?
Yes.
Yeah, you were at the side stage.
Yeah, I went beforehand to check out the dressing room before he arrived. And Queen were the only ones who were allowed to keep the dressing room. Everybody else had to do their bit, get up and go so the next band could go because they did Is This the World That We Created at the end of the show. So they were allowed to keep their dressing room.
Did you know the kind of importance of that show when you were watching it? Did you think this is something extraordinary?
No. Because I was looking at it from behind.
Right, okay.
I was listening to it, and you talk with the artists, all the people who've been on, the people going on, and you listen to what they have to say. And as I said, you hear Elton saying, well, what's the point of going on after that? When Queen had played.
One of my regrets is I didn't go to that. I watched it on the telly, but I wish I'd have been there. So one show I wish I'd actually been at.
But the thing is, you would have seen a lot less.
Sure.
You would have heard it, and you would have been so uncomfortable. Would the joy and excitement be enough to cover up the uncomfortable, tiny little people you see on the stage?
I mean, I think the thing that's extraordinary about that as well, there's no lights, because it's in the middle of the day.
Yes.
So there's no light show to rely on. There's no, Protechnics. There's nothing. It's just the band delivering incredible
But the thing is, the cameras were there close, so you had on the screens what you were missing.
Yeah, I love that one where he starts playing with the cameraman and then he kind of gets out and just does that with his thumb like that. I love that moment. He just goes hey, that was fun. But you could see he was having fantastic
but
fun.
this was him enjoying life.
Yeah.
Because this is the way he thought. People ask about him and his nerves. The way he thought about it, once Trip had been to hear his voice, what's the point of being nervous? The show has to go on.
Yeah.
So you just go on and do it to the best you can, and there you go.
No better words than that. Thank you.
Did you ask all of these questions?
Well, they kind of segued into different sections. We went off piste a little, but you know what? We got everything I really wanted in the podcast. It was fantastic, but it's like I like
and
it to be
it'll
like
cut
that.
down to 5 minutes.
Yeah, exactly. Me babbling on, but you're amazing. But no, it's been fantastic because it's nice to hear the real story, because often the stories are not well told with people who have passed.
But this was my part. I told you before, I was in London for 5 months in 2017. It was for the film.
Yeah.
I was there for the recording of the film.
You're a consultant on the film, aren't you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The best bit about the film, you have to watch all of the credits, and at the very end, literally at the end, my name is there bigger than anybody else who's been up above and below.
Fantastic.
But basically what my job was, because I was there where Bryan Singer was there, so 86% of the time. They shot a scene. And I remember the first time he did this, he turned around, because, the black tent on set, 2 monitors, third one if there's 3 cameras. He's in the middle, script supervisor here, and I was on the right. He shot the scene, and he turned round to me and he says, "Is that how Freddie would have reacted in that situation?" And me being green, this situation never really happened. And it's the film, and it looks okay. That's not what I asked. Is this how Freddie would have reacted? Okay, okay, if this had happened, he might have been a bit more angry, or he would have been a bit more... Okay, thank you. Rami, come back. We're going to do this again, but this time, can you be a little bit more, whatever it said? Because the thing is, it doesn't matter who you are. The script is the Bible.
Yeah.
And you have to try and create your image with the script that you have. This is why, for Bryan, it was so hard, because it wasn't the Freddie he wanted to portray. He wanted to show the Freddie that I knew. I mean, this all started so stupid. He called me in January 2017 and said, "I'm Bryan Singer. I'm the director of the film. I want to talk to you about Freddie." Okay, yeah, fine. Yeah. No, not on the phone. I want to come and talk with you. When it's nearer to shooting, I will come to Prague and we'll have a meal. Nothing happened. August happened. Phone call. "Bryan Singer, I'm coming to Prague this weekend. We're going out for dinner. See you then." So I met him at the hotel. 7 o'clock, we went out to dinner. 3 o'clock in the morning, dinner finished. He then said to me, "Well, look, I really don't know anything about Freddie. You've been really, really good, but I really don't know the Freddie I want to put on. Can you come to England for 3 or 4 days? I go back to England tomorrow. Can you come with us 3 or 4 days?" I looked, yeah, 3 or 4 days I can go, no problem. So I went back with him, and we just talked and talked and talked. And those 3 or 4 days, that started on August the 12th, and I got home on December the 15th. So those 3 or 4 days lasted 5 months. But he could not give the Freddie that he wanted because of the script that he'd been given. He could not change a word of the script.
So tell me this, Peter, honestly. Did you like the movie?
I like the film, but it's not the Freddie I know. As a film, it's fine.
There's a lot of artistic license, not too much, but there is some,
no,
isn't
there
there?
is, because there's the timelines change.
And there's no you character in it.
No, and the thing is, that's fine with me, because we were talking about this. Because if I was in it, it would be another named character, but I wouldn't move the story along.
Sure.
Because there were already so many named characters that were part of the story. And I said to Brian, no, I don't need to be in it, because what I'm doing here for me is more important than what I could do on there, because if I'm on there, I'm not doing the truth. Sure. Here, I can give you the truth.
Was Brian happy with it? The band happy with the movie?
Well, they signed off on it, so... Yeah, because the thing is, in the end, if you look at the film and take all the scenes, they come out of it very, very well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they do.
They look like angels.
Which they probably weren't.
So, when you think that Freddie was throwing them away and everything, they had every right to be so annoyed with him, but he was nice.
Right.
So, no, I think they were fine. The one thing I absolutely dread, seeing, they're thinking about Bohemian Rhapsody 2.
Oh, come on. It's done.
Because the thing is, you've already got, at the end of the film, it writes Freddie Mercury died, didn't it? If you do have part 2, either you've got 2 hours of him dying over those 4.5 years, with some music and everything else, or you have 1 hour of him dying, then he dies, and then the band goes on to become amazing.
I don't think the boys would allow that, though, will they? Brian and the boys, they just...
I would hope
put
not.
Down.
I would hope not.
No, I think it's done now.
Yeah. And the thing is, it's an amazing film. It got 4 Oscars. They're still reaping the rewards, Every 6 months a check goes in. So, as I say, as a film, watching it, it's great, but I do not recognise Freddie.
Sure. Yeah, I was wondering what you thought of it. I think it's important to kind of... I've never spoken to Brian about it. I know Brian, but never asked him what he thought of the film, but, sort of...
No, I think for them it was hard. It was very hard to put it together, because they had to see their lives on film.
So Freddie obviously loved beautiful things, and we're in a place full of beautiful things. Obviously Dopier, which is, and they have the radio museum and the place we were earlier on. What do you think Freddie would have thought
Freddie
of it?
would have loved watching. He had one of these jukeboxes. He had a Wurlitzer it moved. It first sat in the kitchen, then it moved into the sitting room, and then it moved under the stairs. But it was always there on show, and we had to light it up every day. No, I think he would be lost in here. He would just be walking around. And also here, this place, I think he could make a dream out of this, because he could perform to people, not to a crowd.
Intimately.
Yeah. And he could look at people in the eyes and see them. You cannot look at the eyes of the person who's at the end of the stadium. You see them sometimes, maybe a little bit of waving hands, but here, can you imagine? And the thing is, he was about people. It would have to be people he knew, people he liked.
Sure.
But that's what it would be here. he could create something. He would be, I mean, I could imagine him and Mike Moran doing a show here.
Fabulous. Well, if you're up there, Freddie, if you want to come back down and do it,
Just for the night.
one off. Thank you again, Peter.
No,
You're a
you're
star,
very,
man.
very
Thank you.
welcome. You're very, very welcome.